And welcome back to our ABC News special election coverage as we continue to monitor this incredibly close race. I want to bring in my panel here, ABC News contributor and president of Next Gen America, Cristina Tzintzún Ramirez, and former Trump White House Deputy Director of Communications, Roma Daravi. Ladies, so glad to have you here with us. And look, Cristina, you know that I always love to talk to you about what you're hearing from young people. That's certainly part of what you do at Next Gen America. But what are you hearing in terms of the issues that they are expressing to you? And where does Kamala Harris fall on these issues? Is she polling well in some of them? Because they don't seem to be the same issues that we see of high importance nationally.
Yeah, I mean, you have young voters now have become an incredibly important voting bloc for Democrats. And some of their issues are different. While the economy still ranks high for them, you don't see immigration come up as a top issue for young people, but you do see abortion, a top issue for young women. And of course, Harris is dominating with women voters and especially young female voters. And I can tell you when I go out and ask, the first question I ask young people when they're at our table learning about who to vote for, what's on the ballot, why are you voting this election? For young women, it is always nearly abortion or climate change. And for young men, you know, a lot of them say the economy, and some of them say abortion as well, that they feel like watching those they love and their friends have their rights taken back 50 years is something that is motivating them this election.
And Roma, what about your perspective here from young people? I kind of feel like the ground game that we're learning about from the Trump campaign hasn't been as public as perhaps the ground game from Kamala Harris. And we know that he's leaning in with Turning Point USA, Charlie Kirk, to try to get that message out to young voters, young Republicans in particular. What are some of their top issues?
Yeah, the ground game with President Trump's campaign is very strong, particularly in the state of Pennsylvania. You have Early Vote Action, which is Scott Presler's PAC that is focused on young voters in Pennsylvania. He's been at Penn State many times, tailgating, registering new voters, and the line goes all the way around the stadium in order to talk to them about the issues. And the issues do range from everything that the average voter cares about, including the election and immigration. You know, earlier this year, we had the unfortunate incident of a murder of a young nursing student, Laken Riley, in Georgia, on Georgia's campus. So it certainly is something, immigration, that is hitting young students, young Americans across the country firsthand. And it's something that's affecting them every single day as they think about going to school and safety on their school campuses. So I do believe that the issues are consistent across demographics in terms of age and also race. So you'll see a variety of people that are coming out this election cycle. And one thing that's very exciting is the enthusiasm that we're seeing at the polls today. The lines are very similar to the lines that I've seen outside of the Trump campaign rallies. So I have to say it's encouraging to see the amount of Americans that are coming out to express their civic duty and make their voices heard this election.
Certainly is. And Cristina, I'm also curious as to your thoughts on kind of the closing messages here. We know that Vice President Harris spent a lot of time in Pennsylvania. I mean, all of her time, really, actually, in Pennsylvania yesterday, right? We saw a video of her door knocking late last night. But there's been some criticisms here that in these final weeks, she wasn't really able to articulate her message in terms of policy enough to sway some of these voters and win in the margins.
Well, what I heard from her speech last night, you know, some core lines that really stuck out with me is that she wasn't going to come in and be a president stewing over an enemies list, but a to-do list for the American people. Her speech really talked about wanting to address the needs of the middle class, wanting to build a strong economy, wanting to protect basic rights like abortion and tackle the climate crisis. And then you had Donald Trump's speech, which were winding 2 hours spewing of vitriol, division, confusion, talking about people he wanted to go after the last few days. So what we've seen from the Harris campaign, I think, is a very disciplined campaign. We always knew that this election was going to be close. She's had only 3 months, and wow, has she built an incredible campaign in that time period and really come back from behind as the underdog. And so we are seeing a surge of Democratic votes turn out today on Election Day. And I think we are likely to have a Harris win, though we may have to wait a couple days to find out.
I think we're going to have to wait a few days to find out no matter who wins. And Roma, I'm curious though as to your thoughts on kind of what Cristina said there about Donald Trump's closing messages. He kind of described it to our John Carl, the way he addresses his crowds, as doing this weave. He feels as if it's really effective, although we have heard a lot of top Republicans say, no, focus on the issue that millions of Americans care about, especially in these closing days.
Well, President Trump has very long speeches at his rallies because there's a lot of issues to tackle right now. The American people are hurting across the board when it comes to everything from grocery prices to making sure that their children are safe in school, like I said earlier. So, of course, it's going to be a lengthy speech that's covering a wide range of issues. One thing that we don't hear from Kamala Harris is the specifics. And that's something that is very well known with President Trump's agenda on any policy at hand. So I will also say she has not just had 3 months to campaign. She has had 4 years. So if the American people don't realize that, then they haven't been paying attention. And I believe that most of them have, which is why you still hear people saying her message is not clear. What is her policy stance? And the only thing that we're getting from her is that her values haven't changed. That's not a policy agenda. So, the question is going to be, is Kamala Harris walking this fine line in order to keep both sides happy? And will that work? I don't believe it will. The American people are struggling. They want specifics. They want someone who's going to come out, tell them like it is. And we all know that that's what President Trump does. Whether you like what he's saying or not, he's going to be straightforward with you. He'll tell you exactly what his plan is, how he's going to do it, when he's going to do it. And as far as an enemies list goes, I'll tell you who's on his enemy list: China, Russia, and Iran. He's going to make the world a safer place.
All right, Roma Daravi and Cristina Tzintzún Ramirez, it's always a pleasure to speak with you both. Thank you for being here.